Dober večer, dobrodošli. Hello, welcome, Jesús Carrasco.
Thank you.
I'll do a short introduction in Slovene. Jesús Carrasco, imamo tudi slovensko ime za njega, Jezus Marija, pa me je malo zaneslo. Je drugič pri nas, prvič je bil na naši rezidenci leta 2019, približno v takem času kot sedaj. Takrat je prišel promovirati knjigo Zemlja, po kateri hodimo, smo pa mi objavili seveda tudi prevod romana Na prostem. Za roman Na prostem je bil izbran za knjigo leta v Španiji leta 2013 in sicer to izbirajo španski knjigotržci. Po tem romanu je bil posnet tudi film Zemlja, po kateri stopamo, pa je bila leta 2016 je prejela nagrado Evropske unije za literaturo. Vse tri romane, tudi najnovejšega Peljeme domov, je za nas prevedla Urša Zabukovec, ki tudi sicer živi v Španiji in prevaja Jesúsa Carrasca in še marsikaj. Tukaj je seveda zahvaljujoč podpori Evropske unije, ki podpira marsikateri naš program, tako da je tako rekoč že dober in star znanec Novega mesta in Slovenije. So, Jesús, this is your second time and in Slovenia and your third book in Slovenia. You were here 4 years ago, so what happened then when you went back home? It was something very special for all of us. Epidemic of COVID happened. We were watching brave Spanish people singing in the balconies and terraces, and I would like to know, how did you feel that time, going back from Novo Mesto to Spain and live through this extraordinary time?
Well, thank you for your question, Jedrt. But before answering your question, let me say thank you to all of you for being here today, for joining us. Thank you, Goga, for having me again in this upstairs. Literally upstairs. So for me, it's a pleasure to be back in Slovenia. Well, it was for me a really weird time, as for everyone. A special, different time for me because I arrived I went back with my family from Scotland to Spain in the summer of 2019, because we were living there for 3 years, an experience really different for us as a family. For me, especially as a writer. So we moved back to Spain. After the move in Spain, I came to Novo Mesto, another amazing and different experience for me. And then we moved back I went back to Spain. We bought a house for the first time in our life, something really important for the life of someone. And then came what nobody expected, the lockdown for the whole planet. So I was lucky enough because I've written this novel just before the lockdown. I completed this novel at the end of 2019, beginning 2020, in just a few weeks. I told the audience the other day in Maribor, during my period in Scotland, I wrote 2 different novels. And finally discarded the 2 novels because I didn't like the outcome of those works. So when I tackled this new challenge, I was really tired. I was exhausted. And I decided to do something simple to try to overcome this problem, this blockage. I have been thrown away 2 novels. It's 3 years of work. It's a lot of work. And I did something simple. I just played as a kid. And supposedly I know how to write because I have been writing for the last 35 years. But rarely I play with writing, it's my profession, it's my passion, it's my main occupation, apart from my family. So it is difficult to face this profession as a game. And after those 2 failures, those 2 attempts of writing a novel and finishing a novel, I decided to play, just to play a game. And I started to write just for joy. And soon I realized, 8 or 9 weeks later, I finished a first draft of the novel, 300 pages. So, this is a good point. It is difficult to do that, to change the mind in this way, but I did, and it happened. And the result, the final outcome is this novel.
Oh, that's great. So the COVID time wasn't so different when it comes to work.
Sorry, is
Wasn't so different when it comes to work. You didn't feel any other differences because we were all at home, especially in Spain. It was
Yeah.
much worse than we have it in Slovenia. So a lot of people, for example, start to read a lot. We sold a lot of books during the COVID. People that usually don't, they start to read then. So I was always thinking, how is it for authors?
It's almost the same as daily life. You know, you usually spend a lot of time at home by ourselves, reading a lot, not baking bread, because it's something that I don't know here in Slovenia, but in Spain, everybody, even me, started to bake at home bread. So apart from the bread, all the things that happened in the pandemic times, in terms of being alone at home, it's almost the same as being a writer. So for me, it wasn't a real difference. I took advantage of that time to correct, to re-edit, to rewrite the novel I just finished before the lockdown. So I took advantage of this tranquility to make the final work in the novel, which is so important and so intense. You have to read the novel several times, word by word, not just trying to find a mistake or a typo, but to try to make this coherent, make the final polish. It's like if you are building constructing a furniture, a table, whatever, the last stage is sanding with a more fine sanding all the time until you get this texture of the wood or texture of the text in this case. So I did that work during the pandemic.
Did you sing as many other Spanish did? Singing?
No.
You don't like to sing?
I love singing, of course, but it wasn't so brave enough. There were so many people in my street singing and clapping, the doctors and the nurses during every evening at 8 o'clock, I think, or something like that. But I never sing. No, it was a popular thing that it was famous in the 60s, a bit old-fashioned, that became again to our lives, and I was fed up of that song, at the end, and bread and home baked bread and all of that. So I wanted, as everyone, to go away, just to breathe. But there were some beautiful moments. I don't know here in Mesto, but I do live in a city in Spain, Sevilla, which is so beautiful city. You are invited to come to my city, but you have to make your own room because there's plenty of people, lots of tourists now. I remember the first time we were allowed to go out with kids. Before they were allowed to go with dogs, you were able to walk dogs from the beginning, but we stayed at home a couple of months and a half with the kids inside. So the first day we went to the city center, the historical city center, and the first thing we saw was a family of turkeys, these real turkeys with a long tail of feathers, the father, the mother, and all the siblings just walking, in front of the cathedral with no one else there. It was like Orwell novel or something like that, or Kafka. It was a strange, beautiful, and horrible as well, but at the same time, it was the other side of that coin was a lot of people dying and disorientation and a tragedy for all of us.
Not so long ago, I saw a documentary about Spanish flu. It wasn't only a Spanish flu, but since they first call it like this, it's now as a Spanish flu. It was actually probably the same situation as we have it all these years with COVID. And I thought, well, maybe we didn't learn anything. I mean, except for the pharmacy, which is better in our times. They have the same measures, they have the same fears, they have the same system how to survive. So,
yeah, it is something that I think everyone who lived the pandemic and the lockdown, which is basically everyone, we all thought, I think, this. We will overcome this situation because it's all tough for everyone, and we will be better. We're getting better. And I was convinced about that, but at the end, I see the situation. I say, well, probably we didn't understand this thing, or even in climate change, for instance, we reduce the emissions a lot, and say, well, could be this a starting point to see how the things can change. But no. I observe this phenomenon in the tourism in my city, and more people are coming. It's a kind of hungry for walking out, for breathing, for moving, for visiting places, for something I can understand, really.
Did the characters from your previous novels remind you, were you thinking more of them during the COVID? Because in a way, nevertheless, it's not the same situations. You are very focused on ecological part of life. You're very social critical, but not for, it's a criticism that goes beyond nowadays. You write about invaders, you write about local people. You wrote about quite heavy atmosphere and heavy times. Did any of this remind you when during the COVID you said, okay, but I was writing about something similar?
Well, COVID pandemic was an accelerated point of something that has happened previously. This kind of crisis, not as so spread as COVID, is something that we live all the time, especially with the climate change, for instance, or the environmental problems. So I really am focused not in the things that are around me or near to me. And I was young, a boy, because I grew up in a very small village. I was always in contact with nature. So I was always really conscious of the problems and the changes in nature, because I was observing it really closely. So that made me, I think, makes me sensitive for these kind of problems. And I don't know if it's an ability or a skill to look really close what is happening, very close, the relationships, the objects, the nature, all those things. So, well, this is what is in the point of view that appears in all my novels, I think, in all of I have written, in the future I will write, I think. This is a point of view. Sometimes I'm not sure if I'm answering your questions or I am answering my own question. I don't know.
It's interesting. Keep going.
No, just because it's her work to make the questions, and I not my work is to answer your questions, but probably not. Well, I was saying that this is my point of view now. Close depicting or describing or talking or writing about things that are close to us as human beings. And during my time as a writer, I have realized that this is something that I told in Maribor as well. The most valuable thing, or the most precious thing that a writer can offer to society, in my opinion, it is not beauty. Even beauty, of course, is hopefully the book is beautiful, the text is beautiful. It's a point of view. It's a point of view. I think a writer is an observer of the reality, the past, the present, or the future reality. And the best thing we can do is offer this point of view. We spend a lot of time observing and trying to find literature in which is around, and offering this fiction to the people, for them to recognize, for them to embrace, for them to enjoy, for them at the end. So this is my sacred mission. No, not sacred. This is my job, and this is my passion. This is my passion as well.
Great for us that you're doing this. I would like to know what shaped you as an author. I don't know, maybe you start when you were very young writing poems or something. I don't know that. What needed to happen? What shaped you? What led you to become an author? And when did you actually start to write? Or when would you say you became an author?
It is not a turning point. It is not a decision. In my case, it is not a decision. One day I, wake up in the morning and say, I want to be a writer. No, it wasn't that way. I arrived to reading to books really late. When I was 15, 16 years old, I read, comics and books for young adults. And when I arrived to Madrid for a study at university, when I was 19, 20 years old, I started to read seriously literature. And in that process of madurating as a reader, I started to write. At the beginning, I remember clearly when I started to write. I started to write because I was in love of a woman who was in love of me in return. So I don't know why, it's something that I can recommend everyone. I needed to write those diaries to understand what has been inside of me. It was a mess inside of me. I didn't understand the world. I didn't understand anything. I didn't understand my feelings. So I decided to write about that. It's a shaming now, reading those diaries. It's a shaming. It's a 19 years pathetic boy, but it was the beginning. And it was useful to see in front of me my own thoughts. In that moment, as I said, it was in the university time, I was madurating as a reader. I was discovering what literature was. Not reading from here or to there, or just waiting for my library in my village to bring something different every time. No, I decided what to read, because I was led by some friends. And at the same time, I was madurating as a reader. I was starting to write, and not noticing it, in a certain moment, a few years later, I was writing tales, short stories. And then I said, well, this is useful and this is funny as well. Let's try with something, I don't know, a novel for children. Let's try. And I did, and wrote a couple of them, and lots of collection of short stories. I didn't want to be a writer. I just wanted to write. But in a certain moment, I've been writing for, 15 years. So why not try to write a novel? It's a good challenge for someone who has been writing for 15 years so far. So I decided, I wrote a novel. I discarded the novel, of course. It's something that I used to do. Write a couple of novels and then publish one. That discarded that novel. It took me 5 years. And then I wrote this, which was my first published novel out in the open. And it wasn't a decision, but happened. It happened in the best way possible. My first idea was just to finish the novel as a challenge. Someone who likes to write and wants to tackle this canonic challenge, which is write a novel, which is what I read, novels. And I did. And I said, well, let's try with a publishing house. Well, why not? Dreaming is free of charge. We tried with a friend, and I knocked on the door of 2 or 3 majors in Spain. One of them said, yes, we want you. We want your book, and we want you as an author. It was the first time I heard that word, attributed to myself, author. We want to support not just this novel, we want to support your career. Career? I said, what are you talking about? So I gave up my job. I quit my former job. Say, let's try. It can be serious. So this is the process, and that happened 13 years ago, and I'm here with my 3rd novel, finishing my 4th novel. So basically, I am a guy who wants to write, nothing else. And the rest, all the things that happen is, of course, it was my intention, it was my effort, but not my objective at the beginning.
But you didn't study literature.
No.
You studied something else, something completely different.
Yes. You want to know it? You have to wait until the next residency.
So what did you study? I mean, I know, but I want you to tell me, tell us.
I studied for becoming a physical education teacher. I spent 5 years studying, 5 years, studying anatomy and physiology and many other training and many other things. And I enjoyed a lot. Mm-hmm. But at the end of my studies, during my time in the university, as I remember, I was reading and writing, and in some ways building a writer or forging a new passion. But I was studying for become physical education teacher. And at the end, when I finished that studies, I worked as a physical education teacher, and I realized that I didn't like it at all.
Teaching or sport?
Teaching. I love sport, but no teaching. I was young, it was really difficult, 35 teenagers yelling, throwing things, Monday morning, early. What am I doing here? So I decided to give up as well. I said, let's try another thing. And I knocked on the door of an advertising agency, because I have been writing advertising during my studies just to get some money. And they said, yes. Okay, let's go. I gave up as a teacher. I never back. And I spent, 15, 16 years of my life writing advertising and learning a lot about writing.
Yeah, I guess, because it's a daily work. You have to write it daily. You get skilled and skilled more, and probably shaped you as well as an author and writer.
Yes, we talked about this morning, about journalists as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah, all of those professions are writing professions, journalists or writers and advertising copywriters. what is important from that period of my life, or what I learned from that period of my life, is writing with a context, a kind of commission. Someone commissioned to you to write a text, so that erase or take out of all the creativity, all your intention, all your ego. You have not to write about yourself or about your feelings. You have not to add your point of view ever. You are not an author. You are just a writer. And in this process, you are learning lots of important things about simple language, how to manage, how to work with words. Especially in advertising, what I learned is to be precise, because they gave you, a project at the beginning of the week on Monday, and on Friday you have to get the whole picture with a title, subtitle, and a small text, for instance. So you have to receive lots of information. You have to listen one, the client, your boss, so many people, and then to resume and try to offer the maximum meaning with the minimum words. That's really important. It's essential for me. So I think part of my style comes from that knowledge, from that period of my life.
But if we talk about authors, I know it's a school question. Which authors were your favorite or important for you as an author?
Well, there are many, more and more. As soon as I still am reading, more and more authors are coming to my side and to be with me as I loved authors. But in that times when I started to write, my time in university and soon afterwards, I was a reader of North American literature mainly. Especially one author had a huge impact on me, was Raymond Carver, which is an author who writes in a very short sentences, short stories usually, and is able to charge the text with a lot of meaning with just a few words, and create amazing and breaking images with just a few words. So I remember reading Raymond Carver when I was 21, 22 years old, and writing my short story, say, this is a good model. I want to write like Raymond Carver. It's short, looks easy, looks simple, the sentences are short, so this is in my hand, I can do it. And I started to emulate Raymond Carver. I think I remember writing short stories with characters from, Baltimore, California, places like I've never been in, with, alcoholic families and that kind of stuff, the dirty realism. And I started to do that, and it was an incredible, unbelievable stories, But I was writing, I was trying, and I suppose here in everywhere is the same. When you go to Del Prado, the Spanish museum for painting, you see, especially in the mornings, lots of students imitating Velázquez, Goya, Zurbarán, Rubens. They are just copying, they are copying on the masterpiece. And this is the best way to practice, because while you are trying to copy, you are observing, you are deciphering the secrets. How did that line, how did that shape, how is able to create this transparency? You are not a viewer, you're an observer. There is a spider going down there.
That's for good luck.
Okay, great. Here in Slovenia? Yeah. I hope no.
He's here because of you, and he wish you welcome and good luck and so on.
Is she lying? Well, I hope not.
Are you afraid of?
No, it's going up now. I hope I see a bear or something coming that way.
You'll get to know all the
It
animals
is my expectation
here
in Slovenia, foxes and big animals.
Reading first two books that we translated and you wrote was like all you said, short, strong sentences. You don't explain much, you don't draw the situation, but you do the atmosphere. I remember reading both of them, not at the same time. When I finished, I needed a day off because in a way you're writing about heavy, to say sad, it's not enough, cruel things, cruel world. And I needed some day to breathe out and breathe in and it was at the same time beautiful and awful, as a feeling what we were born into and where we are going, because first the novel doesn't have a time step. Could happen years ago, could happen now, probably will happen in the future, and you capture that atmosphere of ongoing ecological problems, awful relationship between invaders, local people, living in villages, working on the land, which is hard, and so on. You capture that atmosphere, and for me it was like, okay, it's beautifully done, but probably it's going to be the way we'll survive our time, and it's not going to be nice.
Well, that's my second novel. It's the saddest of my novels. I'm going towards the comedy. It's, you have not to be afraid of. Not all my novels are in this. This is a quite pessimistic novel. But the third one, this one, I prefer. No, I think no. It was a joke, but as a human being and as a writer, I'm going to the light. I think that novel is really pessimistic. It's a hard novel. And I'm not a pessimistic man. I don't want the future to resemble my own novel. But it's something that I show in some ways. We show, all of us, we show invasions in Europe. We will show a war. We are seeing now, watching wars now within our continent and just beside the continent. We have seen what is happening with the climate. In that novel, all that war appears in a literary way. It is a hard novel. It is difficult for me to read again. I've never read the whole novel again when I published, but I always try to read some pages for any reason, for a presentation or because I need to know something about the novel. And one thing I discovered when I reread the novel is a lot of effort in this novel. Is a lot of honesty in this novel for myself. I worked so hard in that novel, but at the same time, this is a very harsh novel. I don't want a future like this, and I don't want to. And probably that's the reason, because I don't know if it's the reason because I wrote it, but it's a message in that novel. Literature warns us about what happened and what is waiting for us in the next corner. So it's a warning, probably. But unless we don't need warnings in novels, just watching news and television, we just have a glimpse of what is about to happen around.
Yeah, but they don't. I mean, the feeling that, at least for me, the stories went from both novels so deep down. They stick to me, to my mind, to my body, and
there is a technical reason behind that. Mm-hmm. It is something that it doesn't happen in the news, in television. It is not the function of television or the news. The function of news is just inform us what is happening nowadays. But literature is able or have the ability to include us, to embrace us. And a thing that I have tried to do in every novel, on everything that I write, is I try always to create blank spaces. I mean, you say at the beginning, I don't depict everything. I just suggest a few images, I create an atmosphere, and I expect to the reader, to fill all those blank spaces with their own feelings. This is the most precious gift that a writer can receive. Mm-hmm. It means that the act of communication has happened finally. I give you this idea, this point of view over the world, but I leave you some blank spaces in order for you to fill with your fear. It is not my fear. It is not my pain. What is important in your reading experience is your pain, is your fear. If I don't leave that space, I'm not, permitting you, allowing you to go into, to put your own fear. This is the wonder of art. When the art could be a painting, could be a music, could be a book or whatever, a film, when it's able to embrace us, when it's able to invite us to go inside and to be, as well in our emotional space inside of that work. That's for me, the real goal of the novel. That's my sacred mission.
Yeah, but the third one is, let's say, lighter.
Mm-hmm. And the fourth one will be...
would be comedy.
No, the next one will be a comedy, but it's going towards a comedy.
So the last one.
I'm not joking.
It's
I'm
okay.
not
Okay,
kidding.
we'll get
I'm
there.
not kidding because it's a real challenge for a writer to write a comedy. It is funny, of course, but it is so challenging writing a comedy. So this is my secret mission. Now, writing a comedy. Sorry.
We'll get there. We'll get there. But also in the last one, it's precise when it's going. When it's present time. It's some years ago, and I thought you're a bit younger than I am, and around 50. People usually tend to want to know more about their parents as a human beings, or people that came before, grandmothers, grandfathers. At 50, maybe we suddenly get a feeling we won't last forever, and we need to know our roots. Was this your idea, writing this last book?
It wasn't my idea. It is the idea that came up after writing the novel. You know, when I started to write a novel, I don't have a plan, a real plan. I want to talk about this, or I want to develop this idea, or this thesis, or this theory. This is not my point of view, or the starting point, sorry. What I try to do, or what I tried to do in this novel is to write, and I'm going back to the first question, I tried to talk about something that was really close to me. In my space, Spain, the central region of Spain, in my time, it is set in 2010. In my emotional life, my family, or the families around, I'm 50 years old, and I offer in this, or I have put in this novel a question that I've made now because I have 50 years old. I couldn't have written this novel 10 years ago. Why? What happened in the novel is, among other things, is the conflict between a guy, Juan, the main character, who is unable to, or he's unaware of his mom. His mom needs help because she is getting old, as everyone, or almost everyone, and at a certain point we need help. And we have, I don't know if we have a responsibility as a kid, as children, as sons and daughters. And this is the question that I offer in this novel. Have we any responsibility over our parents? Because our parents are responsible for us.
Yeah.
Have we any responsibility for them? When they need us, should be the family the first, to go on to step forward, say, well, we will help or not. I don't know, depending on the family, depending on the society, depending on the time. So I am offering questions or asking questions in this novel from my perspective, my point of view, my view as a 50 years old man, because this is important as well in the novel. It's a fight between the male character and the female character. There's stereotypes of the women have to take care of their parents, the old times. But in the novel, it's a wake of this old thought as well, and they are trying to fight against this because the female, of course, is not forced to tackle this or to weigh this, support this burden because she is a woman.
But let's start with the beginning. Will you do the reading in Spanish and I'll
Sure.
do it in Slovene?
Does any one of you understand Spanish? No?
So he can read whatever he wants. Huh?
What
We
have you
won't
doing
know.
with your time? I'm sorry because I can't speak in Slovenian. Just
Not yet.
Not yet. Well, I've learned adio, because it's very similar to Spanish, because adios. But apart from that, no, I can't. And I'm sorry. I'm serious. I'm really sorry. Let's go with the first chapter, which is really short, and this is the beginning of the novel in Spanish. The Spanish title is Llévame a casa, Take Me Home. Podría haber estado junto a su padre la noche en que murió, pero en cierto modo, Juan Álvarez prefirió no hacerlo. No es que intencionadamente eligiera estar lejos de él en ese momento crucial. Simplemente siguió con lo que tenía entre manos, sin considerar urgentes los sucesivos avisos que su hermana Isabel le había ido enviando durante las últimas semanas, hasta que, llegado un momento, dejó de informarle. Juan, embriagado por los aromas de la turba fresca, interpretó aquel silencio como una señal de que las cosas iban mejor en lugar de lo contrario, y siguió a lo suyo: cuidar de la colección de rododendros del jardín botánico de la ciudad de Edimburgo. Su padre, en un hospital público de Toledo, separado del compañero de habitación por una endeble cortinilla de tela tiesa, y él, a 2000 kilómetros al norte de su cama, recogiendo pétalos caídos sobre el suelo oscuro. Thank you.
A vam preberemo v slovenščini, ali boste pač knjigo kupili in prebrali? Dobro, bomo začetek prebrali. Lahko bi bil ob očetu tisto noč, ko je umrl, a Juan Alvarez tega nikakor ni hotel. Ne gre za to, da bi se v tistem ključnem trenutku želel biti daleč stran. Le ukvarjal se je s svojimi stvarmi. Sporočil, ki mu jih je tedne prej drugega za drugim pošiljala sestra Izabel, ni jemal preveč resno, na kar ga je sestra v nekem trenutku pač nehala obveščati. Juan, omamljen od vonja sveže šote, si je ta molk razlagal kot znak, da so šle stvari na bolje, ne obratno, in je še naprej opravljal svoje delo, skrbel za zbirko rododendrov v Edinburškem botaničnem vrtu. Njegov oče je ležal v javni bolnišnici v Toledu, ker ga je od drugega bolnika v sobi ločevala tanka zavesa iz grobega sukna, on pa je 2400 kilometrov severno od njegove postelje pobiral cvetne liste, ki so padali na temna tla. You dedicated the book to Elena Ramirez. Who is she?
She's my publisher.
Oh.
She's the woman who told me that wonderful sentence, I don't want to support this book, I want to support your career. She was. And I'm eternity grateful for her. She's still supporting me.
I don't know if I ever experienced something like this, a Slovenian author would dedicate their book to publisher. I mean, this is quite something, this is, wow.
Well, I think it's important to be grateful. And I don't come from arts, for instance. I don't come from intellectual profession, or I don't define myself as an artist. I even barely define myself as a writer. I define myself as a worker. I have been working all my life in advertising, no teaching just a couple of months, but many other things, and now writer. And when you're a writer, you have mates, you need the other. And you are really aware of the others, of your team, your staff. You in Go are a lot of people. Great people. I've been counting this afternoon how many cars have been traveling in of the Goga's staff in these days. I've been traveling 5 different cars of all of you. What means you're a great team. You don't have someone in charge of, you are putting your cars, someone in charge of cars. It is a good example of what I feel. I feel the same in both my publishing house in Spain with the staff, with all the staff there, the people who is in charge of editing or correcting, or for my publisher, my editor, the people at publicity, PR. We are a team. I'm here because my work, of course, but my work with that team. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. So I have to be grateful. I want to be grateful.
Can we do a jingle out of these words? Thank you. That's very nice to think of all the people that are helping you do what you do. But how much is there your family or you in the latest book? Because the guy, the main character, the man, as you pointed out, also lived in Scotland, like you did. Okay, he's doing a different job, I guess. He's somebody who wanted to go out of his small Spanish world. He wanted to go out. It was a fight, emotional, I think, between family, father and mother, and him, because father wanted him to stay there, continue, work with him, and continue his work, and he said no. And he did a quite deep cut with his family. We are reading about the dialogue with him and Sister Isabella. She sounds like a mother in that part. I was calling you all the time. You answered once or twice. Usually mothers say that. So it was this dad bringing back him. I think it's very hard for your character to go back home, to bury his father. how personal or how autobiographical it is, the book. I know it's not so important, but
it is important, I think. I used to say that it is not autobiographical.
Yeah.
It's just I took just elements of my life, but I have to declare solemnly that is a lot of autobiographical. Many of the experiences, and not the point of view of the character, because fortunately we are different, the character and me. He's a horrible guy. Not like me. He has, I mean, comedy is coming to me all the time. Yeah, it's a lot of stuff from my life, and the reason is simple. When I tried those novels in Scotland, I committed the same mistake that I've committed at the beginning of my career, or my time as a writer. I tried to write about something that with which I didn't have a strong relationship. That first novel I never published was set in Australia, for instance. I've never been there. And about something that happened in the Second World War, I've never been there. So my feeling when I finished that novel and say, I don't like this is having any beat on it, it's because it goes so far from me. So I wrote those novels in Scotland, closer than other ones, but not close enough. They were more like a project of an author who wanted to write about something specifically. So when I failed in those occasions, in those two novels in Scotland, I decided to play, as I said at the beginning, a boy plays with what is around, with a glass, a pen, whatever is near. And I play when we I'm sorry, my English. It was around me. And around me was my family, was the village in which I grew up, with my experience in Scotland, my point of view as a 50-year-old man. Juan has probably 40 or 30 something. So I took many elements of my life in order to make easy to write that novel. That was it's a trick, but it's a fortunate trick. I discovered so many authentic things, and the honesty in the novel depends on that my relationship with those things, with a mom who is getting old. I share with him the necessity to escape from my village, my small village in which I grew up. It's the same village. I needed that. I was born there, but I don't know why my mates didn't have that necessity. I had that necessity, and I decided to study in Madrid, whatever, physical education, philosophy, whatever, because I needed that. So many of the experiences in the novel are the same experience I have in my life, and that's all. It's as simple as that. Looking closely and finding, real things in what is around.
It's a cultural thing as well. It doesn't go for all European or all countries, but taking care of parents. I guess here in Slovenia it's important. In your culture it's important. In other country not so. It's not so important. I mean, parents are responsible towards the kids, but when the kids grow up, they go away. And it's normal that they leave parents behind, and some other institutions will take care of them. But we, Spanish, Slovene, and this Mediterranean pool has these strong roots, which are full of love, which are full of responsibility, and also full of guilt at the same time.
Yes, because it's a very harsh work to be in charge of someone else and to afford this or to tackle this responsibility. It's crucial in the life of someone. Part of this view comes from my experience in Scotland. Of course, I know my society, Italy, Greece, Slovenia, and I agree. We share these family values with the worst, with the bad things, and with the good things as well. Bad things are guilty, for example. And when I was living in Scotland, I observed that it is not the same kind of relationship with old relatives. They're more put in charge of the social system or whatever, and the family in some way disappear. And that have good things and bad things, of course. I think the best option is a mixture. a mixture in which the social, system can take charge of the heavy duties, and the family is there just to provide love, company, remember, memories, to share a walk. Not everyone is able to, load a very heavy body or that kind of things, or many other things that we are sometimes forced to do when we are taking care of someone old. So the mixture will be the perfect, but it is almost impossible. In the meantime, everyone belongs to a culture. I belong to a Spanish culture, Mediterranean culture, and we feel this connection, this obligation, or this duty, and this pleasure as well. For me, taking care is one of the most important topic in Europe, probably, apart of course, environmental or problems or those kind of things. But taking care is so important. We are getting old and old, and that suppose that we need people to take charge, and we have to deal with immigration, which is the people who usually do this work. So involving a lot of other problems that we have to solve. But taking care is so important, and in social terms and in human terms as well. When we take charge of someone, we pay the bill. It is uncomfortable, it is difficult, but at the same time we discover many things. It is the case, for instance, of Juan. He's forced to take charge of his mom. He doesn't want, he refuses, he doesn't want to go back from Scotland when he is enjoying life, his own life, and he has the right to enjoy his own life. But he is forced to go back, and in this forced movement, he discovered something that he didn't know. Yeah. He discovered his mom as a human being, not as a man.
It struck me when, close to the end, he said, "I was never in the village where she lived and she was born." Like, he's admitting, I don't know my mother, and I wasn't curious what kind of a human being she is still. Nevertheless, she's getting ill. So but the car plays an important role, and we can connect, for, we call it katrca. They still exist, It's a funny thing, not even important for what you do, but could be very expensive car or very valid car, because former president of Slovenia had the same car. He polished it a lot. He's a narcissist, ego, and so on. He treated the same his car, and he sold it for 60,000 euros. So it's also could be very valuable, because your character is thinking about, it's a vintage car, I can sell him for a lot of money. But the car is important. First, it's the smell that brings you back to your to Juan's house. Smell of his room, of his youth, of everything, and this remembering through smelling, through talking to sister, mother, and so on, brings you also to the car, to the old car that takes him and his mother back away and together. So I guess you had the same car. That's why you use Renault 4, huh?
Yeah, we had the same car. Another autobiographical element of the novel. It is important because it was made in Novo Mesto, as everyone knows. Of course, loving made in Novo Mesto. I didn't know that. Someone told me the other day, this journalist, Igor. Yes, we had that same car. And in the novel plays an important role, because it's a place. It is not a place to move around. It's a place to be, because both characters, Mam and Juan, feel so comfortable there for different reasons or the same reasons. For the Mam, it's a place to be alone, to remember good things, and for him is the reminding of that place was the only one place in the world in which his family was happy at the same time. Few minutes. The time they took to go from the village to the near river to spend the Sunday, in the hot Sunday in Spain, just splashing in and refreshing in the river. The short holidays for medium-class family, these humble holidays, and they made that trip in the car. So when they used to go during the Sundays to the river, the dad was driving, just enjoying the drive, not thinking in the factory or in the problem, just driving towards the river. The man was, and he said in the novel, with all the food prepared between the legs,
It was the same here.
It was the same here. So they have nothing to do, because if she's at home, you have lots of things to do all the time. So she was relaxed for those half an hour, for those minutes. And the two kids, the girl and the boy, Juan and Isabel, just looking through the windows and enjoying the landscape. So that was a moment of leisure, of relaxing moment and joy, tiny joy, small joy, humble happiness, but it was. So in the novel, many years later, the car is still there in the family, and they use that car, and I used it as a narrator, as a writer, to put together and to create, a friendly atmosphere for them. They need to relax, and they need to rest as well in the novel, as the reader needs to rest when he's reading. No, you can't, maintain this high level of intensity all the time. You need to relax as well, and the car was the best place for doing that.
So this is a great novel for all the families, because we know that if this would be a happy family, you wouldn't write a novel, because there is usually not enough material to do it. So since we don't have a lot of happy family all the time, it's a family novel actually for each and every family. But let's end with the comedy. Today you told me that your next book is about the village that you go to the seaside or to vacations, and this is great news. But news to me was that you're a handyman and you're working a lot in this house. Nevertheless, it's wood, it's whatever, it needs to be repaired, you do it. You're a handyman.
I try to do it.
Oh. So is that a comedy part in the book, or?
In that comedy is a comedy. I try to do. Well, it doesn't mean that I do well, or even I do. I try to do. I try to make things. Some things are, I can do it quite well, and some things no. And what happening? But I try. I always try, because I love the touching. I love sense. I love doing things with hands. I love to use my body in every way. You have seen me running, many days. It's because I love using the body. I love move the body. I love feel through the body. And when I work with the hands, I use in my hands. This is amazing. This is amazing. What we have at the end of the arm, these fingers, is an amazing creature. What we do with this is amazing. We can play back, or we can not play back, Johann Sebastian Bach, or we can make beautiful furniture, or we can, give a beautiful touch to your daughter or to your loving one, or you can give relief or consolation to someone with your hands. So they are really important for me. And what I've tried in this new book is just to just think about these hands and the feelings that produce me these hands through working. And the scenario that I've used is this whole house. It's a house that it doesn't belong to us, to my family or me. It is something that we are in some ways occupying, could say, yes, with the permission of the owner. The owner, this is a story. The owner is a friend of my brother-in-law. He is a businessman. He bought this house in order to demolish it and build new apartments. It's a very old house. It was abandoned by that time. But he bought that house in 2008, Lehman Brothers. So he couldn't find the money to build up this project. So my brother-in-law asked to this guy, can I use the house for a few months while you are not building this? Oh, yes, of course, let's do it. 10 years later, we were there, and the house was, collapsing all the time. And we tried to create a good atmosphere in the town, but we couldn't spend a lot of money. It wasn't our house. So we are trying to try not to demolish, try to not to feel down, but just creating a good space there. And in that process, the life has aroused. Many friends have come. We have a great over the heads. The summers are great. The girls are growing up there, playing with donkeys, with hens, in the fields. It's like a Gerald Darrell novel could say, something similar. And in this journey, I work all the time with my brother-in-law, trying to do things. Sometimes it's really funny, the kind of things we do and the final result.
Looking forward to read this book, I see it as a comedy, practical stuff, and Above all, this house is a nice story which tells us a lot about that greed and capitalism and money is not everything. By building a new flats, probably they would earn more money by renting or selling. But you keep the house. It's a great story.
Well, in some ways, that book is a love letter to the owner, because the owner is a businessman. He doesn't know anything about what had happened when he was trying to find the money or building other things. There were lots of beautiful things happening there, and it was my gratitude letter. Look at this. This is what was happening in your house, in your property, while you were doing other things. It's a love letter in some ways as well, and it's a love letter for my family as well.
Great. So looking forward to read this as well. Hope to see you again then in Slovenia.
Yes, in 4 years I'll be back.
You'll be back. Thank you, Jesús.
Thank you.
Hvala tudi vam.
Thank you.